Yo, what's going on guys? It's Dude here, and today we're back with a brand new video. And today we're going to be going over setups that I've made for these most recent cars that have come out in the 1.59 update. This is actually the first time I've done one of these types of videos, so if you guys do enjoy and do find this useful, leave a comment down below to let me know that you enjoyed it, and if you enjoy the setups, of course. And leaving a like rating also helps me out in the YouTube algorithm, so without further ado guys, let's get into the cars this month. So the first car I want to go over in this update real quickly is the C5 Corvette Z06. Not having this car in GT7 to this point was very odd to me, as maybe other than the NB Miata, it was the car that I was the most surprised to not see in GT7 so far. But thankfully, PD answered our prayers. But more importantly, how does it drive? Well, the C5 Z06 honestly feels really good entering corners. With a lot of rotation in medium, high, and low speed corners, the car doesn't feel lazy on turn-in at all to any capacity, but it does suffer slightly coming out of low speed corners, putting down the power. And this is a very common theme with the Chevrolet road cars in this game, especially some of the older Corvettes. And while the C5 isn't the worst in this area, it's definitely not one of the car's strengths. But other than that, the car does everything that I wanted to do with this setup in particular. I've opted in to do an 800 pp build for this video. Of course, you could do an 800 pp build by keeping all of the horsepower and lowering the front downforce, but I wanted to preserve the really nice handling characteristics, so I kept the downforce and took off a little bit of horsepower. And as far as one lap pace goes, this car is really solid. It's nothing overpowered, it's nothing insane. At 800 pp, it can get into the mid to low 142s at Trial Mountain, which is on par with cars like the Porsche Carrera GT, a car that actually drives very similar to the C5 Corvette, despite the C5 being front engine. This also makes the C5 good competition with the Viper GTS from 2002, which is going to be lots of fun to have battles with those in open lobbies. I'm super pleased with the Corvette C5. It doesn't feel overpowered, and it certainly doesn't feel underpowered either. Next up, I want to talk about the Suzuki Carry KC. Meme cars, and honestly just these lower tier cars, are typically not my cup of tea. However, the Carry does have a lot of redeeming attributes. Specifically, it's extremely lightweight. Despite being a truck, it only weighs 1,376 kilograms, which makes it extremely tossable in the low speed corners, supported by the fact that this car has a multitude of different aero bits, and if you do choose to equip the wide body, you have a diffuser option, which increases not only the straight line speed, but the handling and the downforce capability of the car. Now with this setup equipped, I decided to opt in for a lower downforce build, just because you are going to be spending a lot of time on the straights, and having less drag on this truck is actually probably more valuable than having more downforce. The one thing to watch out for this car in particular is maybe its aero balance, as in high speed corners the car is a little bit skittish with the setup that I have equipped. However, with careful inputs this can be managed quite easily, and in low speed corners this thing is a beast. The car maxes out around 521 pp. Undoubtedly it's going to find more success in the 400 pp range. A lot of you who do use this vehicle are probably not looking for something to be ultra competitive in, and this build in particular honestly gets the most out of this vehicle that you can get. I really hope you guys enjoy it. Next in line we have the Ferrari 812 Superfast. Now if I'm being honest, I definitely expected this car to be extremely quick when the leaks on this update originally came out, mostly because the Ferrari F12 Berlinetta is already an extremely quick car in its own right. But I'm not gonna lie to you, this car shocked me. And at the time of making this video, this is the fastest non-engine swap street legal car in the game right now, other than the Aston Martin Valkyrie of course. This car puts nearly a second on some of the other unswapped fastest road cars like the Aventador SV, the GTR, etc. How it's able to achieve such a time? Well, mostly because of its insane downforce values. The 812 Superfast has 320 pounds of front downforce and 530 pounds of rear, and with a very strong and smooth power delivery from its naturally aspirated V12 and its rearward weight bias despite being a front engine car, this thing absolutely flies through the corners, and honestly having all of that downforce doesn't really seem to hurt it in a straight line either. In terms of balance, it is definitely an oversteery car, and this setup does its best best job to neutralize that oversteer while also not hampering this car's main strength, which is its strong turn-in. I'm not sure how this car would fare being brought down for the lower performance points ratings, but as far as it stands, the only car that this is comparable to lap time wise is probably the LS7's swapped 2017 GTR, which is in a weird no man's land in between the Bugatti swapped R8 and GTRs and the aforementioned Aventador SV and the other non-swapped road cars. And one of my other favorite things about this car is the fact that there is no custom wing option available, meaning you can choose between the Type A or Type B option without any downforce penalty. Cars with custom wings typically force you to use the custom wing because you need to be running all of the rear downforce, as it is a pretty significant advantage on a lot of cars, and this car doesn't do that. So yeah, overall, I don't know how much I'm going to be using this car because I do think it is a little bit overpowered, and that's not typically the type of car that I like to use in lobbies. Objectively, it is one of the strongest additions to Gran Turismo 7 post-launch, and I hope you guys enjoy this setup. And last, and probably least, we have the Honda CRV. Now, if I'm being honest, I'm a little bit disappointed by this one. It definitely doesn't perform all that well for its performance points rating. You're stuck with a CVT transmission, and while with this setup the handling is extremely strong, the straight line speed and overall drag is just very pathetic. Now, on certain tracks you can choose to bleed some front and rear downforce for more straight line speed, as that will be faster. However, I'm tuning this car honestly under the assumption that they are going to add an engine swap to this thing in the future. I feel like you can't add an insane Pikes Peak body kit like this and then not give the car an option to have more than 188 horsepower, which yes, this car maxes out at 188 horsepower, which is really sad, honestly. So while the platform does handle and it does have the downforce and the chops to perform decently well, until it gets a stronger engine, I don't really recommend you use this thing. I don't really understand why PD adds these types of cars in updates. I'm okay with getting these types of cars at the beginning of a game at launch as just a part of a grander car list, but to get these in an update, they really don't generate any hype, and the CRV in particular really doesn't perform all that well. Well, that's that for the setups, guys. Overall, I think the update was solid. I feel like the bar has been set pretty low for these content updates. Yes, they are free, but honestly, I'm getting to the point where I would honestly rather pay to get a higher quantity and quality of content, but I think at this point we all know that's probably not going to happen. The C5 and the A12 Superfasts are definitely the standouts to me for this update, and I will be using the C5 a lot, and objectively speaking, the A12 is an absolute beast. If you guys do enjoy these types of videos, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, especially if you find utility out of these setups. But without letting this video drag on too long, I hope you guys have a fantastic night. It's been your boy Dude, and I'm out. Peace.